How does the lack of wage inflation in Australia and particularly how we've performed or underperformed compared to the rest of the world, I guess how you look at that, how does that play into that whole scenario, that whole cycle? And what needs to happen for that to change here?
Well, it's worth noting that in those countries where wages growth has picked up, that it is still running behind consumer price inflation. And so to take the United States as an example, wages growth is running at 4.5%, which is the highest it's been since 1986 or thereabouts. But consumer price inflation is at 7.5. Yeah. So although you might wish that wage inflation in Australia was higher than it's been for a long time, if that simply meant higher consumer price inflation, then workers wouldn't really be significantly better off. I think we probably will see some improvement in real wages in Australia, however, simply because we're looking at an increasingly and unprecedentedly tight labour market. You know, the federal budget that will come out just after we've had this conversation is expected to forecast an unemployment rate of less than 4% for the first time since 1975. And while the government and governments before this one have repeatedly been wrong in the forecasts that they have made about faster wages growth, the reality nonetheless is that sustained increases in real wages can only be supported by improvements in productivity growth. And one of the main reasons for the wage stagnation that employees in Australia have experienced over the past 7 years is that productivity growth has been so poor. Now, that's not necessarily, in fact, it's usually not the fault of workers. You know, productivity growth is primarily the responsibility of the management of firms where people work, and it's more a failing on the part of management than it is on the part of workers that productivity growth has been so poor. But I would also say that by contrast with the 1990s and the early 2000s, there's been very little done by way of productivity enhancing reforms to boost productivity growth either.